he's a nutcase. We've known he was a nutcase. He accused me of being a racist because I had white dogs years ago when we were fighting Brexit. And he said in a response...
What? Okay, back up, June. You're going to have to explain that one for us.
He said I was a racist. In fact, I think he said I was a Nazi. He said it was to do with the fact I only had white dogs. And I said, well, they only come in one colour. They're called West Highland Whites. The clue's in the name. They don't come in any other colours. It was a dispute, an argument, a debate, whatever you want to call it, about Brexit years ago, because obviously he's anti-Brexit. He doesn't believe in democracy. He doesn't believe in healthy nutrition. He doesn't believe in being able to power your own home through cold spells. He doesn't believe in the pensioners having a winter fuel allowance. He doesn't believe pensioners should be able to hang on to their own homes, because he also voted against the winter fuel allowance, and they've taken the cap off the social care. Now it's a free-for-all. Nana's house, we don't need to worry where Nana's house is going. It's going to the Labour Party in government.
I warned that this communist Labour government was going to be bad, but I have to say that even I have been stunned by the depths of stupidity that they have managed to plumb after just 3 months in charge. Nothing has been more damaging to the UK, however, than the appointment of a legitimate numbskull called David Lammy to the critical role of Foreign Secretary under two-tier Keir Starmer. Now, I don't know how many people realise that the neocons are marching us blindly into World War III. Loony Lammy, rather than helping to start it, should be focused night and day on avoiding that horrendous calamity at any cost. Instead, this fool has decided he has one mission: nut zero. As this spoof-like headline read today, it's in the Daily Telegraph, not the Onion, I promise you. Climate change, a more fundamental threat than terrorism, Lammy to warn. He even released a Hollywood-style trailer to hammer home his point. Stop wasting money on ridiculous gimmicks like that. But actually, it got worse when Loony Lammy started talking.
We will take a phased and inclusive approach to building the alliance, listening to those leading the way on clean power and those who share our ambitions. But the shared goal is clear: making net zero power a reality everywhere. Change is critical if we're serious. There is no pathway to countries' development aspirations without climate resilience, action on the nature crisis, and access to clean energy, and no pathway to a sustainable future without development that leaves no one behind.
He is the Foreign Secretary. But of course, Labour's client journalists at Sly News, home of the Climate Change Show, naturally lapped up such ludicrous messaging.
That he wants climate and biodiversity to be at the very centre of UK foreign policy under his leadership. And he reiterated that multiple times, saying that although he's been kept very busy with conflict and the migration crisis and things like that, his true mission was to ensure that it was worked towards addressing climate change and adapting to it, both through fossil fuel projects and things like that, but also improving biodiversity to adapt to the threats of climate change. We're going to be central to his department's agenda for the rest of this.
So thank goodness for Reform UK, whose deputy leader Richard Tice pointed out, in teenage girl language, which I love, by the way, because I'm always using this term, OMG, our Foreign Secretary Lammy thinks greatest overseas threat is climate change, not war or terror. He is competing with Miliband as Britain's most dangerous man. Well, Richard, I'm actually going to go one step further. And I'm going to say he's not competing. David Lammy is Britain's most dangerous man. Because his hard left political philosophy is combined with a stupidity that simply shouldn't be allowed around the cabinet table. IQ test this man now. If you don't believe me, let me show you Lammy campaigning to overturn the biggest ever Democratic vote in British history.
Deal, but you have to have the option to remain in the European Union for the option to mean.
But Mr. Dow's colleague in the Treasury team, John McDonnell, says the option to remain is not something that Labour is prepared to offer the voters.
Well, my own view is that that would be a betrayal of Labour members.
Oh, a betrayal of Labour members. Well, what about the betrayal of the 17.4 million Leave voters who you attempted to disenfranchise? This is a man who truly believed Jeremy Corbyn would make a great Prime Minister.
I so wished that Bernie would have been alive to see his great friend Jeremy Corbyn become leader of the Labour Party.
And just wait when you hear what our Foreign Secretary said about Nigel Farage and the man who should be America's next president if he's not assassinated by the deep state before Election Day, Donald Trump. He wrote in 2020, desperate and deluded, like two con men who have been publicly exposed trying to sell their pyramid scheme one last time. The world will breathe an enormous sigh of relief when this double act fades into irrelevance. Populist nationalism is on its way out. I mean, that was a stupid prediction too, right? And I mean, look, when I say stupid, I'm not being mean. I just really mean it.
Policing has vanished. It's not around you. We haven't seen a police while I've been here, and I've been here for a little while now. Police.
Nothing can top his catastrophic Mastermind performance.
What was the married name of the scientists Marie and Pierre who won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1903 for their research into radiation?
Antoinette.
Curie. James Gandolfini played a mafia boss called Tony in which American television series?
Godfather.
The Sopranos. Which variety of blue English cheese traditionally accompanies port?
Leicester.
Stilton. Who acceded to the English throne at the age of 9 on the death of his father Henry VIII in 1547?
Henry VII.
Edward VI. In chemistry, what French word is used for a tube for transferring measured amounts of liquids?
Pass.
What was the married name of the scientist?
Now, that TV appearance actually got a mention from the Conservative leadership hopeful Kemi Badenoch when she was asked about Lammy's insane nut zero agenda today.
A couple more questions I want to ask you very briefly. David Lammy was saying the Foreign Secretary currently giving a speech saying climate action will be central to the Foreign Office. He's forming a new climate coalition internationally. He says this is a bigger threat to the world than threat of autocratic leaders like Vladimir Putin or terrorism. Do you agree with him, or is that a completely daft thing?
He is not a serious man. He is not a serious man by any stretch of the imagination. And this goes back to his, appearance on Mastermind, where he said Henry VII succeeded Henry VIII. This is who is representing us on the world stage. What is our biggest challenge now? It is a coalition of authoritarian states that are acting and collaborating against Western interests, including the UK's interests. That is the biggest challenge. Of course, climate change is a challenge, but it's not him having a group of people sitting in a meeting that's going to fix that. Well, that's what we've been doing for the last 10, 15 years. He's talking about COP26. Many of the commitments that were made there, other countries aren't following through. Why are they not following through? Simply saying we're going to do this without having a plan is silly. The plan that we put in place ended up enriching China and is deindustrializing the UK. As business secretary, these were some of the things that I worked very hard to try and solve. It's virtually impossible to solve with the targets and commitments that we've made. We need to look at all of this from
you would drop the net zero targets and prioritize economic growth.
Well, without economic growth, we're not going to hit net zero. Without economic growth, we're not.
A couple more questions I want to ask you.
Look, I'm actually with Julia on this one. It is one or the other. So while Kemi is absolutely right when it comes to the total disdain she has for Lammy the man, she doesn't have disdain for the economically destructive nut zero. So yet again, it's only Reform UK truly fighting to keep the UK's lights on, which will actually be a miracle to keep the lights on if we're subjected to 5 years of Loony Lammy. But now, let me bring in today's superstar panel. Oh, and I am delighted to be joined today by June Slater, who is a businesswoman, a YouTube sensation, and a voice of sanity to many around the UK, and Leilani Dowding, who is a reality TV star and now a social commentator who went viral all over the world yesterday. And Leilani, we're going to speak to you about that later. But June Slater, I can only imagine your blood pressure rising when you hear David Lammy, Loony Lammy, saying that as Foreign Secretary, the thing he's going to be most focused on, June, it's not going to be stopping World War III and the neocon march towards that, but rather making sure every other country destroys themselves with net zero, or nut zero as I call it. But first, if you've been following my channel, you know I've talked about Verso before. They were my first ever sponsor for a reason. I've been using their products since earlier this year, initially drawn to the longevity benefits, the feeling more youthful, the having more energy, enhanced cognition, better sleep, all of that sort of stuff. But there was an unexpected bonus I started to notice. Salbein by Verso isn't just about slowing down the aging process, it's packed with research-based ingredients that also promote fat loss. These ingredients have been proven in both animal and human studies to boost metabolism and improve body composition through a variety of body mechanisms. One aspect is how these ingredients increase the body's process to break down fat and act as a calorie restriction, mimetic, essentially fooling your body into thinking it's consuming fewer calories. They also help regulate glucose and leptin levels, which suppress hunger and increase feelings of fullness, effectively curbing cravings. Now, I take Salbein every day to feel like a younger version of myself, combating the signs of aging, which is amazing on its own. Experiencing fat loss, though, is an added bonus and something I'm very happy about. Plus, Verso ensures transparency and quality by publishing third-party testing results for each batch they produce, so you know exactly what you're paying for. Click the link in the description on YouTube and Rumble, or head over to ver.so and use the coupon code Outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. To repeat, that's buy.ver.so, www.buy.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code Outspoken.
Well, I think he showed himself in his true colours on Mastermind, named the famous scientist. What did he come with? Marie Antoinette. Yeah, I think that's because he's always thinking about cake. I mean, who's buying his suits? It looks like he comes out to a meeting in those suits, you know, where Jimmy's gone to school and his mother said, you'll make that suit last till end of term. He buttons it up in the middle. And then he's got those black trainers on, going to meetings in trainers. So he's obviously got bad feet. He's carrying far too much weight. And he's telling us how we should live. He's telling us how to create net zero. I think get your own carbon footprint down and put a few less things in your mouth. That might help. Because we're supposed to not eat meat now. We're supposed to eat insects to help with this. He's a nutcase. We've known he was a nutcase. He accused me of being a racist because I had white dogs years ago when we were fighting Brexit. And he said in a response...
What? Okay, back up, June. You're going to have to explain that one for us.
He said I was a racist. In fact, I think he said I was a Nazi. He said it was to do with the fact I only had white dogs. And I said, well, they only come in one colour. They're called West Highland Whites. The clue's in the name. They don't come in any other colours. It was a dispute, you know, an argument, a debate, whatever you want to call it, about Brexit years ago, because obviously he's anti-Brexit. He doesn't believe in democracy. He doesn't believe in healthy nutrition. He doesn't believe in being able to power your own home through cold spells. He doesn't believe in the pensioners having a winter fuel allowance. He doesn't believe pensioners should be able to hang on to their own homes, because he also voted against the the winter fuel allowance, and they've taken the cap off the social care. Now it's a free-for-all. Nana's house, we don't need to worry where Nana's house is going. It's going to the Labour Party in government. So Lammy it's embarrassing. I have to apologise to people from abroad that know me, especially when they ring from Austria, and they go, Junie, who is the man with the goes to all the foreign trips? I said, oh, this is our Foreign Secretary, David Lammy. They think he's visiting us. They don't think he comes from here because he knows so little about the country. He never says anything that makes any sense. He's a fruit wombat. Yeah, I can't even get angry with him because it's like, carrying the community politics.
Well, I know, but this is the difficulty, isn't it, Leilani? Because obviously, on the one hand, there is that. This guy is completely mad, completely thick. I mean, I don't say that lightly. Really, really not a smart man. He proved that on Mastermind. But there's also something really sinister and worrying about this, where we see what's happening with, for example, Ukraine. There's another £600 million. Forever wars, that's what the neocon want. But we have Lammy not talking about trying to stop that, and certainly not the threat of Islamic terrorism, which he doesn't discuss at all, which is what I am completely focused on and utterly scared of. And I think we all should be here in the UK. Yet he says, actually, no, the most important thing I'm going to do as Foreign Secretary is nut zero, even though we already have another nutty bloke, Ed Miliband, focused entirely on that.
Well, this is what is scary. And honestly, Dan, I think he has to be a DEI hire. There is no other reason that he should be in this government or in the position he's in. And it is scary. We now have two important people in the Labour Party who are just simply focused on net zero and green energy and nothing else. They can't see anything else. And again, as I always say, you've got to follow the money here. We know one of their huge backers was Vince, who has massive interests in green energy and so forth. So we need to look at where the money is going to, who's getting these contracts, what's happening. Because if you ask any of the British people, they will say their biggest concerns are terrorism and going to war. How can they not be with the climate that we're in? And I don't mean climate as in the weather. I mean the climate with the war, the pressure, this pressure cooker that's building up. And honestly, it's absolutely insane to me that this guy is able to just he's been put in that position and it's crazy.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.